Yeah, so what we're looking at here is we're being told this is, I think, anywhere from just shy of 200 to 300 feet in depth. There are all kind of reports out there of 1,000 foot, but I think that's more propaganda. So what you end up doing is if you saw the movie, the latest Top Gun movie, eerily enough, this is that plot kind of coming to fruition in real life. It's not just one bomb. It'll be a bomb after a bomb to get through that penetration.
And just lastly, that's what you're talking about. Can penetrate up to 200 feet below the surface. And then, of course, we'll see it try and put the second one in there and go down in there. Yeah. Let's bring in David Burke, our Top Gun and former Top Gun instructor, retired U.S. Marine Corps officer. Now, David, I don't know how well we did that, but you know this better than anybody. Talk to us about, questions over whether or not this can successfully be done.
Joey Jones just crushed that explanation. You guys hit the nail on the head. So really well done. This absolutely can be done. There is not a cave in the world deep enough to defend itself against the American military if it needs to hit it. And you described the weapon system and the aircraft and the mating of that exactly right. Now, this is a hard problem to solve, but it is absolutely a solvable problem with this system.
A few moments later.
Announcing on Truth Social that the U.S. has successfully bombed sites in Iran. I'm going to read you that post right now. We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. All planes are now outside of Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace, he says in all caps. Thank you for attention to this matter. Again, the breaking news coming from President Donald Trump that the U.S. has indeed bombed sites in Iran. I want to go to...
All right, guys. So we got to talk about the big news, okay, which is that President Trump has authorized strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, okay? And these strikes on 3 of their major facilities has been deemed to be successful, at least according to the president, according to the White House, according to the mainstream liberal media. And I want to talk about it, okay? Because like I stated at the beginning of this conflict, or put it this way, the most recent iteration of this conflict, because this is not a recent conflict. This is a conflict that has been going on for decades, right? So this is not new, okay? Which I think is a part of the reason why some people are freaking out about this. They think that this is new when it's not new. This is an old conflict that it looks like President Trump is deciding to do things that past presidents did not want to do, or put it this way, they didn't have the cojones to do, but he has the cojones to do it. And clearly, the United States have been planning to do this for a long time, even before President Trump decided to do this, okay? So I want to talk about it because depending on what happens moving forward into the future, this could have a very significant impact on President Trump's legacy in a very positive way, or it can be very negative, okay? And again, it just depends on what happens moving forward into the future. The president, when he announced this strike, he indicated that, hey, he wants peace now, okay? And that, he wants basically Iran to completely surrender now that their major nuclear facilities have been taken out. I don't think we really know to what extent Iran still has the ability to enrich uranium, but we do know now that it is likely that we don't have to worry about them making a weapon anytime soon, right? Which, hey, it's debatable whether or not they actually really want a weapon, but hey, we don't even have to worry about it anymore because we did this strike. So I want to play some clips here so you guys can get a better understanding of what happened. I'm going to play President Trump's comments from Benjamin Netanyahu, and then I'm going to tell you guys what I think. So without further ado, roll the clips.
Fox News alert. I just spoke to the President of the United States. I have some new information and breaking details to share about tonight's what is historic air campaign. Now, tonight, Iran's nuclear ambitions, they are officially dead. It appears the United States just completely obliterated Iran's top secret Fordo nuclear facility with 6 huge bunker buster bombs. It was originally speculated that you would only need 2. It turns out they used 5 to 6 dropped from America's stealth B-2 bombers. And that's not all. 2 other major Iranian nuclear sites, Natanz and Isfahan, were wiped out with 30 Tomahawk missiles launched by American submarines some 400 miles away. Everyone is out of harm's way for now. That does not mean that American assets in the region are not at risk, and we are monitoring the Iranian response or potential response all throughout the night.
This effectively destroys Iran's capability to enrich uranium at this level that they would need. There are thousands of centrifuges in these sites, and the fact that the Americans have the bombs and have decided to use them to strike deep underground puts Iran in a position where at some point it will have to make a decision about the future of this regime, because the Israelis went after many of the air defense systems around these nuclear sites. They went after the sites that they could target with the fighter jets that they have. We talked with those Israeli pilots earlier in the week, and now tonight President Trump ordering this strike, importantly against the Fordo nuclear facility deep underground, very close to the Iranian capital of Tehran, indicating that this strike will not only damage but likely destroy, if successful, Iran's nuclear program and their ability to go and get closer and closer to a nuclear weapon. We expect to get more reaction from Israeli officials tonight, Brett, about this key strike that will change the course of the Middle East forever, and also what they believe the Iranian response will be, if any, to these strikes. The Iranians still have the capability to strike Israel with their ballistic missiles.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Congratulations, President Trump. Your bold decision to target Iran's nuclear facilities with the awesome and righteous might of the United States will change history. In Operation Rising Lion, Israel has done truly amazing things. But in tonight's action against Iran's nuclear facilities, America has been truly unsurpassed. It has done what no other country on earth could do. History will record that President Trump acted to deny the world's most dangerous regime the world's most dangerous weapons. His leadership today has created a pivot of history that can help lead the Middle East and beyond to a future of prosperity and peace. President Trump and I often say, peace through strength. First comes strength, then comes peace. And tonight, President Trump and the United States acted with a lot of strength. President Trump, I thank you. The people of Israel thank you. The forces of civilization thank you. God bless America. God bless Israel. And may God bless our unshakable alliance, our unbreakable faith.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. Okay, now I'm going to give you a trigger warning before I get into my analysis, okay, because, people tend to misunderstand what is being said, especially when it comes to these type of videos, right, on these type of topics in which, people get very emotional about these topics. But what I'm about to say has nothing to do with how I personally feel about whether or not the strikes are right or wrong, or whether or not I agree or disagree with the strikes, right? It has everything to do with the fact that these strikes and this whole military operation over the past few weeks has been a masterclass in regards to military strategy and deception. Those are just the facts. I told you guys when Israel started striking Iran, I said in my first video, a lot of people got upset, but it turned out to be true. Iran is weak. They're weak. Israel effectively took out a lot of their military leadership, their top scientists, right? So their actual intellectual capital, Israel took it out. They took them out, and then they also took out Iran's ability to launch ballistic missiles. I mean, they still have some capabilities, but their capabilities aren't as great as they were at the beginning of all this. You have Israel not only dismantling Iran and their ability to attack, but also they just completely took over their airspace, right? Just completely took it over, and that opened up the pathway for us to come in with our B-2s and to drop these bunker bombs on the Iranian nuclear facilities, right? And again, it was just damn near like perfect execution in the sense that a lot of people were guessing in regards to what was going to happen next. Okay. President Trump was coming out publicly and saying, hey, we're trying to negotiate, or, I'm going to give it 2 weeks. And that's not what they actually had planned, right? This operation was very tight, okay, in regards to information getting out, and they hid their true intentions, right? And that's essentially what you have to do when you talk about warfare. And again, just witnessing the execution in real time really is stunning, to be honest with you, right? Just how tight of a ship this operation really was. And some people might not like it, but that's just the reality when you talk about war, right? When you talk about fighting a war, when you talk about taking out an enemy, what you basically saw was Israel and the United States of America working in tandem, basically tag team in Iran in ways that basically have completely dismantled Iran for the most part militarily, with minimum casualties, okay? I mean, when you talk about taking out a country's top scientists, right, their intellectual capital, their military, you think about how do you respond when your top commanders are being taken out, right? How do you respond? You don't even know how to respond because you got to find a new guy to take over, okay? You got to find a next in line, a next in command to come in and take over. So when all those guys are being taken out, all their top intellectual capital is being taken out, you can't just replace that. You can't replace those things. Those things are basically irreplaceable. And again, it's just something that was executed damn near perfectly, right? Just from that perspective. Again, that's outside of whether or not I agree or disagree with the strike, okay? Now, when it comes to the impact of the strike, right, moving forward, this can work out either one or two ways, really, to be honest with you. Effectively, this puts the Iranians in a position where they're going to have to back down, right? They're going to have to surrender, okay? Whatever the United States and Israel, whatever we're asking for, they're going to have to come to the table in an honest way, okay, in order to stop military escalation and to stop regime change as well, too, okay? Because, again, when you talk about an escalation in military action, again, that could further provoke the Iranian people to try to overthrow the regime in order to make it stop, right? So now the leaders of Iran, they're under a lot of pressure now to kind of make this stop, right? And if that happens, okay, if they fold, then this is going to be a huge W. This will be a historic victory for President Trump if Iran falls, okay, if they fold. Now, in the case that they don't fold and they decide to strike back, okay, and there is a significant loss of life. And when I mean by significant, I mean like doesn't have to be that many people, right? If you start talking about Iran striking back at our military bases that are basically surrounding that country, and we start losing service members, I do think from a domestic perspective that will hurt President Trump a lot, okay, depending on how far this escalates, okay? I do not think that this is going to escalate into a ground war. I do not think that it's going to escalate into World War III, right? I'm not one of these people fear-mongering about World War III. And again, one of the reasons why is because China and Russia are not going to jump in and help Iran, okay? Russia has their hands full with Ukraine. China is not going to jump in to go to war with the United States over Iran. They're not going to do that, right? Especially, again, if they're actually really preparing to invade Taiwan. Again, I think they have other priorities outside of Iran. Yeah, that ain't happened. Okay. The fact that they don't have a nuke just shows you that they're weak, right? And they're naive when it comes to dealing with the West. I'm pretty sure from their perspective, they're probably wishing that they had got a nuke a long time ago, right? That if they actually did have the ability to build a nuke, which is, what people claim, and that's disputable, right? Whether or not they actually, are pursuing nuclear weapons. Some people say it's not happening. Some people say it is happening, right? Regardless, I guarantee you right now they wish that they had built nukes. And, if they actually had a nuke, this would not have happened to them. So, again, it really shows you how foolish their leadership actually really is when it comes to dealing with the West. Because if they had done that, then this likely would not have happened. But because they didn't do it, that's part of the reason why this is happening. Okay. Also with other things as well, too, other economic issues to consider as well, too, outside of the nuke thing. But regardless, my point is that this could be devastating to President Trump domestically. Again, if this escalates into a broader conflict in the Middle East and you start having U.S. service members lose their lives, right? If that happens, then this is going to backfire domestically. In the long run, we don't know if this actually achieves our goals when it comes to Iran, because regime change hasn't happened yet. Okay, we already know that that's what they really want. They want regime change, even though they have not officially taken that position, as in the United States hasn't officially taken that position. And in some cases, they come out and say, oh, no, we don't really want regime change. I don't know. Actions kind of suggest otherwise, right? So I'm just saying, in my opinion, I think that's what the West really wants, right? That's just my opinion. Also, on top of that, Iran has basically come out and said that those strikes were ineffective, right? That they moved their personnel and their materials a long time ago in anticipation of the strikes. Now, we don't know if that's true or not, but regardless, if Iran escalates in a way that, again, means U.S. service members start losing their lives, I think this will backfire on President Trump. If that happens and we don't get regime change, right? That would probably be the worst case scenario. Also, there's some economic options for Iran too, that comes with pros and cons, okay, for Iran, in the sense that they could issue a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, which I believe is responsible for, I think, 20% of the global oil movement around the world, right? Trade. And it is especially important for some of these Arab Gulf nations. They could do that, and that could send oil prices skyrocketing, right? If oil prices start skyrocketing, that means that you're probably going to see prices rise in the United States of America. We could see actual inflation. Like this is actually a real thing. This is not the whole like tariff inflation thing. No, this is different. Because we know that the reason why prices have not risen the way that the media predicted is because the price of energy, the price of oil has been going down, right? So we know that that's kind of been part of the reason why we haven't seen the inflation that was predicted by the economists. However, if that changes, right, and oil skyrockets up to, I don't know, $100 a barrel, $120 a barrel because of the Iran blockade, then that could definitely hurt President Trump domestically, because, again, now we're going to have to be dealing with the economic effects of this strike. Okay. However, this would also hurt the rest of the world as well, too. So you talk about neutral countries, like, for example, you have Europe, China, India. They would suffer significantly from Iran doing this, and they might not tolerate Iran doing it. And again, that's how that strategy could backfire on Iran. Also, on top of that, we do have military, we do have our Navy in that region. So if they were to do something like that, that could further escalate conflict, right? Military conflict. So I'm just saying that Iran has options. They're just not good options. And that's why, again, this is not going to lead to World War III. The fact that Iran hasn't built a nuke already, and also on top of that, Israel basically took over their airspace. I mean, dismantled their leadership, dismantled their ability to really fight back. Okay. I mean, their strongest assets in the military was their ballistic missile capabilities. And Israel effectively took out most of that capability. Again, it really shows you how weak they are, right? And the whole point of doing this is to make sure that they stay weak. Now, people can agree or disagree with it, but if this doesn't lead to a broader war, if Iran ends up folding and we don't lose any U.S. Service members, then this is going to be a W for Trump, regardless of how much, you hate war or you're anti-war or whatever. That is going to be the reality of it if it does not escalate beyond this, right? It may escalate a little bit. Iran may, they might try to strike back, right? But we've seen how that kind of plays out, right? Like when President Trump decided to assassinate General Soleimani, Iran, they made a whole bunch of fuss about it, but they fired some missiles into the dirt near a U.S. military base, and they folded, right? They kind of, went on about their day, went on about their business. And that could very well be how this plays out, where it may seem like they're going to try to escalate, and they'll try to do some things in order to make it seem like they got revenge, and then they'll back down and they'll fold, and, it will essentially calm down at that point. But we don't know, right? We don't know. I'm just saying that depending on how Iran responds and how much further this escalates, is going to affect how President Trump's legacy is shaped by these strikes, okay? If Iran folds, this is a huge W for President Trump. If they don't fold and they retaliate to the point where U.S. service members start getting killed and we're dragged into a broader war, okay? I don't think there will ever be a scenario where we're going to have boots on the ground per se. But if we're dragged into a broader war in which you have U.S. service members being killed, then, again, I think it's going to be a stain on the president's legacy. So regardless, me personally, I am hoping for peace, right? I'm hoping that this de-escalates. I'm hoping that Iran does what they typically do. They shoot some missiles up and then they, try to claim victory. Nobody loses their life. And then, hey, things kind of settle down. Okay. But it will be interesting to see what happens in regards to regime change. Because again, we know that's what they really want. That's what the United States, that's what Israel, that's what, honestly, the Arab allies, that's what they all want, right? The West, we want regime change, right? That's what we really want. If there is no regime change, then from the perspective of the Iranians and the Ayatollah, the regime, they probably will try to build nukes, right? That is also another part of this, is that, well, this strike in the future, if there is no regime change, motivates them to try to build some nukes in the future, right? Because, again, like I've said throughout this video, if they had nukes, I don't think this happens, right? You don't see this strike if they actually had nukes. If anything, if this strike does not eventually achieve regime change, the concern is that, well, the regime staying in power is now more motivated to build nukes, to actually get nuclear weapons in the future to prevent that from happening again. But again, we will see, right? We will see what happens moving forward. What happens will determine how this shapes President Trump's legacy. It could be very positive, right? This could be a massive victory for him, or it could severely damage his legacy. It just depends on what happens moving forward. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.